This time of year, a good hoodie is absolutely essential. But these days, it's tough to find one that will last through the season. That's why the American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it to bring you comfort and warmth year after year. Slate Magazine called it the greatest hoodie ever made, and from cotton to zipper, it's made right here in the USA. It's crafted with timeless style, heavyweight fleece, a double-lined hood, and reinforced elbow patches, which means this hoodie can withstand any outing or adventure. It'll be your new favorite hoodie, and you can depend on it for years to come. Plus, buying from American Giant means supporting local communities of farmers, manufacturers, and more. This season, snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code CLASSIC24 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com, code CLASSIC24.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So, while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
I'm Kasumi, and I am a media artist.
Welcome to Art, the podcast where we get to know women from around the world of visual arts. I'm Chris Stafford, and this is Season 2, Episode 11. My guest this week is the media artist Kasumi, whose career ranges from musician to filmmaker, author, designer, illustrator, and painter. Her work features short and feature-length experimental films, live shows, VJ, and public art projection, creating looping electronic sculptures, designing motion graphics and animated GIFs, producing immersive 360-degree virtual reality pieces, and making fine art prints and wearable art. Kasumi studied music at the Staatliche Musik Hochschule in Cologne, Germany, playing the lute. She then moved to Japan, where she lived for 12 years and taught Baroque music at the Tokyo College of Music. Kasumi performed as a soloist throughout Japan, Europe, and the US, recorded 4 albums, and performed twice at the Carnegie Hall. Whilst living in Japan, Kasumi explored her writing and published her first book, The Way of the Urban Samurai, in 1992. Kasumi married and raised her son Kitayo Sakurai, who became a renowned filmmaker. While simultaneously pursuing her work in painting and set design, she continued to publish writings on music, politics, and social issues for, among others, the Asahi Shimbun, the Japan Financial Journal, the Early Music Quarterly Tokyo, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and the Sacramento Bee. From prints and collage to films and video art installations at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, to the Lincoln Center with the New York Philharmonic and Carnegie Hall, performances with Grandmaster Flash and DJ Spooky, public art at the Cleveland Museum of Art, DC Tower, Vienna, and Teatro Colón in Buenos Aires. VR 360, post-production and GIFs for the Eric Andre Show, and interactive art-making apps. Kasumi's work, Surfacing, developed at the Cleveland Museum of Art, was expanded into a solo exhibition for the Sculpture Center. Perhaps her most impactful production, though, came after being awarded a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2011 when she embarked on the feature-length film project Shockwaves, which included 25,000 plus short public domain film samples. It proved to be a life-changing project, which she says was like being in therapy for 5 years. Kasumi's next production is Farandole, an hour-long cinematic assemblage selected as part of Lincoln Center Presents Women and Non-Binary Artists in Tech. It will screen on March 14th at 6:30 p.m. at the David Rubenstein Atrium at Lincoln Center, and it's free and open to the public. Kasumi, welcome to the Art Podcast. It's great to have you here.
Wonderful to be with you.
Well, we should tell everybody what we've been doing for the last hour, just almost. Because considering we both work in the media, it took us almost an hour to get the audio to work. But now you've explored all your different options with your audio capabilities at home.
None of which worked except for this one. The simplest one, of course.
Well, thank you for taking the time to do this, Kasumi, because I know you're busy. You've got a screening coming up, which is very exciting next month. So which is why we wanted to time this interview to coincide with that. So you're going to tell us all about that later on in the show, right?
Yes, very happy to.
It's hard to know when I look at your portfolio, Kasumi, it's hard to know actually where to begin. Having been a musician, filmmaker, and with so many different aspects of all the different mediums you've worked in, I wonder what you consider to have come first.
I think it's an impossible question. It's just impossible because it's sort of an evolution that is one thing is connected to another and that is connected to yet another. It's all sort of an intersection of weaving in and out of the different aspects of my life and what I've observed in my life.
And I've read, how influential your parents were in opening that world to you to be creative, for analytical thinking. Do you remember what that was like, in the very early days? What were your earliest memories of those and how your mind was free to be as experimental as you care to be at a very young age, I would imagine?
Well, I think, it had a lot to do, of course, with what they did in their lives. My father was literally a NASA rocket scientist, and my mother was an artist. And my mother used, her focus had been in sculpture, but then later in life, she used different media to create her work. So she didn't limit herself to, say, painting or, one thing. She used different materials constantly. And my father supported that and supported my interest in experimenting and, my own art practice. But I think I used them as examples of just being experimental in my work and exploring different media, different forms of media.
So what kind of a child were you then? What are those earliest memories of childhood and the kind of things that were fascinating you?
Oh, I think I'm the same as I am now. I'm very introverted. I love working. I love making art. I love experimenting and exploring. But I think all kids are like that, but they're just not given the opportunities to do that.
So as an introvert then, how do you approach when the lens is turned on you, or the microphone, as is the case today, turned on you? Is that not something you particularly cherish, but is kind of necessary with the work that you do?
It's awkward, but I must tolerate it. But I work, and I do. And the funny thing is, I do love to perform. And I think there's a difference between, or there's a blending of being an introvert, being shy, and being a performer. Because as a performer, you can express something that you couldn't in so-called real life do, because you're expressing another aspect of yourself.
Let's talk about the music. Where did that come from? When did that begin?
Oh, everything came early on. From the beginning, I knew I was interested in music and art, and everything, just from the start. Those are my very first memories.
So that was home influences, but what about school? What were the influences there?
I had some, even very, very early on, some very evolved and sophisticated teachers who I remember one teacher was very fond of classical music and brought it into the classroom. And I was just blown away by that. It's like, well, this is, fantastic. And it really was inspiring. And I always paid attention to classical music and art, and it just kept growing. I never thought I would do anything else but music and art. I mean, I never grew up thinking, well, for briefly, I thought maybe I'd be a physicist, but that lasted about, 20 minutes. It's like, there are numbers involved? No, I can't do that. So I always knew, I mean, it's my life. It's my fate. And then what really sort of sealed the deal, I guess, was travel, was seeing the world and living in different countries and speaking different languages and realizing that the essence of myself is and always will be an artist. After you peel off all those acculturations and all those different languages, all those different influences, you are what you were when you were 2 years old.
As far back as that?
Yeah.
So what were the first musical instruments that you were handling then and learning to play?
Well, we did have a piano, and because I'm a very, very small person, I could not reach an octave. So that grew to be unsatisfying after a while. And I somehow became interested in guitar. So I played that for a while and studied classical guitar. And then I really loved the repertoire of the Renaissance and Baroque. So I played the lute. And that's what took me on my many voyages around the world to perform.
Tell us about that. When did actually performing become a part of your life?
Oh, that was pretty early on. That was pretty early on in my late teens. Yeah.
And what were the opportunities then? How did those doors even open for you?
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Yeah. I guess in college, which I didn't finish college actually, but I had been studying with a group from Germany. And from there, I went to Germany to study and perform. And from there, I went to Japan to perform, and then eventually got a teaching job at a conservatory in Tokyo and kept performing.
This was always with the lute or other instruments?
Yeah, this was a lute, yeah.
And you were teaching Baroque music there at the Tokyo College of Music for a while?
Yes, yeah.
How did you enjoy teaching? Because this all puts an introvert on stage, whether you're performing or teaching.
Well, I think on a one-on-one basis, it's pretty tolerable. I mean, a classroom isn't that, that's not that difficult. But when you're on stage, that's another completely different animal. And you just sort of have to leave your body. You have to leave the body and enter a whole other experience with the audience. It's like you're something else when you perform on stage. And that made it beautiful. That made it a beautiful thing. That you're sharing this music. It's just another, it's another kind of relationship, I think.
Was the studio, if you were recording, was that a safer environment for you then?
It's just different. It's demanding in a different way because, dropping notes is not good, when you're in the studio. It's nerve-wracking in a different way. Whereas when you're on the stage, it just sort of flows out of you. Boy, it's hard I haven't thought about that for a while, but.
What about pre-performance nerves, though? How did you handle that?
Oh, dreadful. Oh, dreadful. Oh, dear God. Yeah, it's horrible.
What was your go-to diversion?
Before getting on stage?
Yeah.
Just walking, exercising, breathing, practicing more, making sure my instrument was tuned, But no, that's nerve-wracking. Yeah, beta blockers helped after a while, but yeah, a lot of musicians take beta blockers now.
When did the nerves actually kick in? I mean, how far in advance of the performance did you have to endure this nerve-wracking experience?
No, it just built. It was a build-up. It was it crescendoed right before I walked out, and as soon as I would start playing, it goes away. As soon as you start playing, it's gone. It's just the build-up. It's just the anticipation.
And is that any easier for you now?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Do you enjoy it in a different way then?
What, being on stage?
Yes. I mean, without the horrendous build-up, the anticipation, the nerves, and all of that.
Well, I'm doing different things now. I'm not playing the lute now. When I perform, it's more as a VJ. It's more. It's a different kind of focus, and I'm so well rehearsed when I get up there that I just do it. I just sort of turn it on. It's a different focus.
Where is the most satisfaction then in what you're doing now? Because, as you say, you've evolved over the years, and the satisfaction comes in different ways, doesn't it, with the type of work you're doing? Where do you garner that satisfaction and the validation for your work?
Oh, well, those are two different things.
Yeah.
Validation comes in the form of getting your work up, getting awards, getting grants, getting, selling your work, displaying your work. But satisfaction comes in knowing that I'm being really true to myself and making work that I love. I love my work. And that doesn't come easy.
Unpack that a little bit for me.
Well, I think we're our own toughest critics, especially when you're working in media art. There's so many decisions you have to make. Every frame of a film or a video, every nuance, every color, every movement, every change is a decision that you have to make. And when you're doing that in your private studio without anyone telling you what to do or critiquing you, you have to be your own master. And when I feel that I have attained something that I think is beautiful and true and something that I would be proud to show, that's satisfaction. So that it's self-satisfaction versus audience approval. They're two very different things for me.
Yes, it's internal or external validation, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And being an introvert, Where does the self-confidence then merge with the real world in terms of, the validation that you're getting externally? And I'm wondering if when you go home and close the door, if you start second-guessing yourself.
Oh, totally, of course. Yeah. Of course.
And that's still the same as it always was, or does it get any easier?
It's gotten slightly easier. But I'm always second guessing. And I think the second guessing is what creates great art. Because if you can be your own biggest critic, then you're constantly improving your work. And if not, if you think you're great from the start, then, I don't need to improve. But that would be foolish.
Are you very hard on yourself?
Brutal. Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Beast. Yeah.
So what are the challenges when you wake up in the middle of the night? What are you beating yourself up about?
I guess very little that has to do with my work. No, I don't wake up in the middle of the night anymore about that. Yeah, I'm a good sleeper. I've learned it's a gift.
You have combined so many different cultures, so much travel to evolve as an artist. Let's talk about those journeys. First of all, going to Germany and studying music at the Staatliche Musikhochschule. That was in Cologne. What was that experience like for you, Kasumi? And what sort of age were you approximately? What decade are we in?
I think we're still early 20s. Yeah. Very early. Yeah. I mean, the hardest thing was the entrance exam. I don't think I ever want to do that again. I mean, it was so hard because it was in German. I had to learn German and take the exam. But once you pass, then it was okay. And living in Germany was lovely. It was really a great experience.
Tell us what you enjoyed about it most.
I loved the ability to get around so easily. The trains, the transportation was just brilliant. I don't know. Here, in the U.S., it's such a car. Everything is about the car. Where do you park? Where do you drive? And there, it's like maybe you can have a bike, but take the train. It's so easy. Just so easy getting around. Yeah. And therefore you can see everything. You can see the beauty of old Europe, of I would go to the smallest villages, just beautiful all over Europe. It's just fantastic.
And where did the interest come from originally to go there?
Because the Hochschule had a program in early music.
And that was going to give you the Baroque foundation that you needed.
Yeah.
But how long were you there altogether?
Let's see, I was in Germany on and off for about 3 years.
So how's your German?
It's good.
Yeah? Okay, it's good, huh?
It's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
And that's a nice combination to have, actually, then. So did you know where you were going to go when you left that school?
Well, I had been concertizing quite a bit in Europe, and then I was invited to go to Japan from there, and went to Japan and did concerts, and that was another, part 3 of, the third act in the story.
This is the third act, okay.
Yeah, that was the third act.
And are we on the fourth act or the fifth act now? Where are we?
Oh, I've
lost count. You've lost count. I'm wondering if you perceive the world, your world, to have got you in your life to have been phases, chapters, or just a continual journey.
It's a continual journey. It's not just a journey; it's an evolution. And I've realized that as I mentioned before, we're always sort of, we as people are constantly intersecting and weaving in and out of each other. And, it's true in our lives and histories. And it gives me, for one, a sense of solidarity that reveals our underlying independence as a species. And that is what drives a lot of my work, especially, it drives all of my work, actually. Like Shock Waves is a total example of this intersection.
Yeah.
And I think society now is so obsessed with labels. You're this or you're that, or you have to fall into these little cubby holes of distinction. And I don't think that's true. I think we're all multifaceted beings.
Just join the dots up for me from Japan back to the States. What's the time frame there? How long were you out in Japan, and what made you come back to the US?
Well, I got married there, and had a baby there, and it became it was difficult. So the country was not big enough for the two of us, so I had to leave. But I had a phenomenal time. I mean, it was like a 12-year venture.
Well, that's a considerable amount of time then to really, establish the culture and the influences and certainly the music that was going to take you on the next stage of your journey. Yeah. Coming back to the US, then, are we still on the music train, or had you begun the filmmaking by then?
I had actually in Japan, I had started writing because I was so interested in trying to convey what it was like there and how different it was from the rest of the world, really. Japan is quite a unique place. And I was trying to convey this, and I would write letters to people and let them know what it's like. And then I realized, well, maybe I'll write a book. And by that time I had a baby, and I couldn't travel quite as much, although I did take my child with me on concerts. But I started writing, and then I wrote a book, and I did get a publisher there, and I brought it here, and it got published here. And I continued the writing as newspaper essays. I wrote for maybe dozens of different newspapers. It would be everything from political to cultural to societal essays. When something would come up, it's like, oh, write about car manufacturing in Japan and how it's different from. So that made me do a lot of research. So I had to think about that for quite a while. And then in the meantime, the computer sort of reared its ugly head into my life. And I realized that this was a phenomenal tool. Now, if I can back up a little bit, I had also always been an artist this whole time. I was always doing artwork. And the book I wrote was also illustrated. So I did all the illustrations for that. And that sort of opened up another thing for me that, yes, I can combine everything I'm doing. And I got into the art world from there. But then, as I said, the computer sort of entered into my life, and I discovered video editing. And that was just crazy. It was just a crazy, interesting thing that I hadn't discovered. I didn't know about it. And at that time, video editing was becoming nonlinear as opposed to film editing. That was, you're literally cutting film and splicing it together. I've done that with audio a lot, with audio taping, splicing tape. But the nonlinear editing in film was just brand new and just beyond exciting. And that was sort of my start. The possibilities were,
Yeah. Were you self-taught then with the camera?
Yes, completely. Yeah.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
Just going back to your book, that was The Way of the Urban Samurai. It was described as an illustrated parody of life in Japan.
That's right.
When it was published in 1986. But your continued writing, I want to continue to talk a little bit more about that, Kasumi, because you did explore so many different things, as you just mentioned, politics, as well as music and social issues. Do you still find that to be a necessary outlet for you in terms of your own cultural and social statements in life to be able to write now?
Well, it sort of got taken over. I became, the writing I did about Japan opened my eyes to the political forces that were brewing in this country. And I think my political coming of age was Bush 2. That's when I really, it's like, oh, okay, now I have to really, really pay attention. And that made me want to express my ideas through film, because I thought it was the most appropriate way of, in this sort of assemblage sort of process, to express what I was trying to say. And now, it's grown to the extent, the political madness in this country, I can't even do that anymore. So I've sort of left the political arena in my work. It's too much. It's just too out there. Yeah. You can't make a parody of what's happening. Yeah. It's beyond parody.
Yeah. I'm thinking with all the different stimuli in your creative life and in your life, Kasumi, that can be somewhat overwhelming. There just seems to me you've put your arms around so many different things in the course of your life. Mm-hmm. How you unpack that, and now it seems that film is the most vibrant and necessary medium for you to do that. Yeah, it's true. I'm thinking, why do I make art? Why do I do what I do? And I think most importantly, I make art to make sense of chaos. That's what art is. It's like, how do you make something out of the bits and pieces that are in our lives that fly into our faces? And by doing that, I'm trying to see how identities are defined and how we construct truth, which is sort of is a offshoot of my interest in the political machinations of the world. Because truth is constructed. It's not what is true. And that, using our assets, I use a lot of found material and taking those bits and pieces and using them, these little bits and pieces, these symbols and images that we all recognize. They're sort of stockpiles of shared expressions. These become the raw materials of my art. This barrage that
is thrown at us every day. I think the more you create priorities, the less they're bound to happen. So I just have to keep on that evolutionary flow, and just I'm trying to learn new methods for my work. The work that's coming up, actually, it's as of this broadcast, it'll be in 2 days. It'll be March 14th is my Lincoln Center screening. And it is, again, the piece is called Farandole. It's silent, and I'm providing a playlist actually to go with it. So people are invited to bring their own headphones and listen to that. It's an assemblage that is sort of reveals an intertwining network of dense and layered storytelling that mimics and draws on our own subconscious mind. And thus, I'm hoping, provokes viewers' memories in a multitude of ways. I hope this film, you're not looking for a story, you're looking for an immersive experience to sort of wash over you.
And this is part of Women and Non-Binary Artists in Tech that is running through from January.
Correct, yeah.
It started back in January, running right through to May.
Right. Yes, at 6:30. It's at 6:30.
How long have you been working on this?
A couple months.
So very relatively short project compared to some of your other projects like Shockwaves.
Oh, brother, yeah.
Years in the making.
Yes, 5 years, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary. Do you remember the early days of the concept emerging for that? Because it was such a huge undertaking.
This was my Guggenheim project.
The Guggenheim Fellowship you were awarded in 2011. You already had this concept in mind.
And it was a little vague. It was a vague thing, but it evolved again into what it came to be. And it turned out to be also a revealing of my own life and my own identity and my own experiences. Sort of a weaving together of the conscious and unconscious, reality and fantasy and childhood and adulthood.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta Holiday Market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
And again, the goal is to immerse the viewer in dense and layered storytelling. And again, a provoker of memory in multitude of ways.
And when you emerged from that journey in itself, how did it change you?
Oh, it totally changed me. Totally changed me. I felt as though I had been through 5 years of therapy.
In a good way, I hope.
Yeah, it was great. In a good way. Yeah, it was liberating. It was actually liberating because I could finally identify a lot of the anxieties and problems that I had in my mind and put them together and understand them and let it out as this project, as this film. So it was sort of deconstructing myself and reconstructing it as Shockwaves.
What else did it teach you about yourself?
Never to undertake such a long project again. Keep it short. Let's keep it short next time. Yeah.
Shorts only.
Yeah. Well, at least, the project at Lincoln Center is an hour long, but it's not as complex in the same way. It's complex, but not quite in the same way Shockwaves is.
How did Shockwaves inform your journey to that immediately after that? Did you have to take a break, just sit back and enjoy the impact of that, or the impact on yourself? Or did it inspire you to move forward with things that you maybe hadn't thought of before? And how did it impact you?
Well, one of the ways it impacted me was by focusing more. The Shockwaves itself, and a lot of my work, is based on gesture, very small gestures that are possibly unrelated, but because I use found material, I take these thousands and thousands of tiny gestures and assemble them to make a statement. It's like a sentence. It's like a book that's made of thousands of letters and words and phrases and sentences and paragraphs, like music. It's the same thing. But then what I started to do, and I sort of got sucked into this while I was working on it. I would take a little break and notice this one gesture that are gestures that are filled with meaning. They're all symbolic, like the upraising of an arm. Like, what does a salute mean? What does a cowering gesture mean? What does a sideways glance mean? And focus on one gesture and see what happens when that one gesture is looped and regenerated and repeated over and over again, sort of like in a feedback loop. And in that way, I got interested in creating patterns of much more complex and infinite ways, so that instead of a representation of the sum of its parts, I create works that are maybe like the work of the minimalists like Reich, and in music. I'm not sure. Let's see, who are some of those composers that will take one note and just like play it over and over and over again with tiny little variations. And that's what I started to do, is play with a single gesture and loop that and play with the variations of that. And that sort of became my focus after Shockwaves.
Evolution, well, we're past the dawn of artificial intelligence, AI. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if you see that as a threat or an opportunity. How do you perceive AI in the media world?
Well, what I see now is sort of hideous. I can spot it a mile away. I think there are certain aspects of AI that are great in terms of as a tool. For example, one of the methods I use in my work in order to use, sampling film. So just visualize an old black and white piece of film from the 40s. It's all grainy and fuzzy. And I'm trying to extract a person, just doing a little gesture from that. So that, up until now, has involved frame by frame carving out of that person or that gesture. Really time consuming. And what AI can do is sort of assist in that process. So those sort of tools are great. I think AI can be useful in audio engineering, sound cleaning, noise canceling, that sort of thing. But right now AI, the visual stuff I've seen is pretty boring, and it all looks the same.
Are you a workaholic, Kasumi? Do you have a busy mind?
Oh, yes.
Are your days long?
Yeah. Long and productive, I hope. Yeah.
And is that an essential part of your day? I know it is for me to have to feel some satisfaction of creativity in a day.
Yes, for sure. For sure.
Do you have to go to bed, with that feeling that you've created something?
Yeah. And if I don't, I have to make a list of what I need to do the next day in order to remedy that feeling. Yeah. So even my relaxation, sort of, I was playing with something sort of akin to a mix and match book. You know what those are? You have one image and you slice the pages and you turn one of the portions of the page and it's revealed another image, whereby creating a whole new creature. And I actually made an app out of this, so that my inability to relax grew a whole new project. So I don't know if there's a theory in quantum mechanics called the many worlds theory. It's the idea that every decision you make, with every decision you make, an entirely new universe springs up containing a new version of itself. And so that was the thinking behind Shufflehead, which is my app, which is the Apple Store and the whatever the Google equivalent, the PC equivalent is. So it's an interactive project where I sort of a free association game of civilization. So I love puzzles, and I love puzzles that have an exponential number of solutions. So it was another way of, okay, I can't relax, but I want to play. So here's something I can make that I can play with that is like an exploration of human interconnection, and it's a coloring book and a music maker. So it's sort of, again, going back to the concept of identity, it demonstrates the superficiality of the concept of identity. And I did this, I released it during the pandemic, which I think we can all agree, it made it clear how we're all linked together as one organism. And so this was sort of my way of expressing this, but as an entertainment, as a play, as a plaything. So that's what I do in my free time,
Well, I'm just going into your free time now. I'm wondering if music is a part of your life to the extent that you can use it as relaxation, or no?
No.
Is it work?
It's work.
So aside from puzzles then, where's the relaxation coming?
Cooking for friends. One of my favorite things to do. I love cooking. And that's a way for me to relax and hang with friends and be out of my work mode. Even though it's work, it's constantly cutting and prepping, and it is a lot of work, but it's just so rewarding.
Do you have a preferred cuisine that you treat your guests to?
It's usually on the Asian side of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, it involves so much cutting.
Lots of time on the chopping board, right?
Oh my God, so much cutting, but I love it.
And I bet you have the best Japanese knives.
Oh, I have great knives. Yeah. They're very sharp, very, very sharp.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta holiday market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.
You talked about painting, that painting has always been a bit of part of your life, that you've enjoyed doing that. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you would find relaxing now? Do you get time for it?
Actually, so I do love painting, but something that I've been doing maybe in the past, maybe 5 years, is I started to do collaging. Mm-hmm. And with collage, so I've done silk screening and painting and different art forms that are like 2D art. And what collage does is exactly the same kind of satisfaction I get from doing an assemblage film, like a montage style film, like Shockwaves was. But I can do it without electricity. I can do it by candlelight. So if the power's out, I can do it. And it only requires scissors and glue and materials. Bliss. And you can leave it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to render like material on a computer. Very satisfying. Yeah, it has a very similar feel from me from filmmaking.
And of course, a different pace is in reading. Do you make time for reading?
Oh, yes, I love to read. Yeah, it's imperative. Yeah.
What are your preferred genres?
Well,
fiction, nonfiction?
Both. Yeah, I love reading history. I love reading. I recently read an amazing book called The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wengrow. Have you
not
heard of that?
No.
It's amazing. It sort of overturns whatever people had thought about the history of the world and refutes a lot of the evolutionary theories of history. That was a brilliant book. I love reading about the origins of consciousness, how consciousness is developed, how it evolved, the evolution of languages. Another amazing book I read recently is called A Distant Mirror by Barbara Tuchman, about the 14th century, which has an intense and shocking parallels to our current situation. Just amazing book. I totally recommend that. And then I love reading fiction. I love reading fiction by authors who have sort of cross-cultural experiences like myself. Those are always interesting for me.
Is there another book to come from you, do you think?
From me? I doubt it. I don't think so. I mean, if it is, it will be mostly images with some writing. But writing is very hard for me. Making a film, I way rather make a film than write. It's so difficult for me. But I do it,
Because you are so well published. Why do you think the writing is hard? What makes it hard?
Well, again, it's never perfect. There's always a better way to do something. There's always another decision to make. I mean, it's the same in making art, but I think I can judge better when something is done in a piece of art than in a piece of writing. I'll overlook something. I'll think, there's a better way to say this. And then I'm, spending the next 3 hours on 2 lines.
When you look back at what you've achieved in so many different worlds, bringing all these worlds together, what would you consider to be those most significant milestones, I would say, Kasumi?
Maybe having a child. That's another whole aspect of my life. Raising a child. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to talk about him in a moment, but let's go through the milestones, because that, of course, is significant when you bring child into the world. Mm-hmm. But professionally or in other personal ways?
Each project has its own sense of gratification and accomplishment. Like I have one of my favorite projects is an installation I have at the arena where the Cleveland Cavaliers play. It's called the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. It's this installation it's like a tunnel of LED display. So it's a curve from floor to ceiling and then back down to the floor of waiting. It was just waiting for my artwork. When I saw it the first time, I thought, okay, this is what I've got to do. Just things like that. And it's up and running. It's just gorgeous. Thanks to the technology, of course. Those sort of things, when I see it in real life, when I see my work up and playing and on display, that it's so satisfying. I can't deny that.
Let's talk about your son, because he has followed in your footsteps, hasn't he?
Well, he's way surpassed my footsteps. Way surpassed me. Oh my God. Yeah.
Obviously enormously proud of him. Let's talk about him.
Well, how do we even begin? Like me, he was also a very shy boy. He was very, very shy. And so to my utter shock and amazement, he wanted to be in the school plays. And he started, he was acting. Wow, this is crazy. Someone who's so shy, he's always, standing behind me in crowds. And now he wants to be on stage. And what he said, well, the same thing I expressed before is you're a different being. You're expressing a different part of yourself when you're on stage. So this shyness is not part of it. It disappears. So he was acting and became involved in theater. And then he was on a main stage play, and sort of came into his own as an actor, and then became very interested in directing and writing plays and writing film scripts, and then producing films, and then directing films. And now he's a big time Hollywood director. It just it's shocking how he evolved.
Well, let's bring him out of the shadows. Tell everybody his name and some of his main works.
His name is Kitao Sakurai, and he's best known, I think, up until now for the Eric Andre show. And then he directed Bad Trip, which starred Eric Andre, and that was the actually #1 streaming movie in the world. Pretty insane. And then he directed episodes of Dave, Twisted Metal. He's in South Korea right now directing a show called Butterfly, which will obviously not be out for a while because he's still working on it. And a myriad of other projects. I'm sure his IMDb has all his, I don't even know what he's done. He's just done so much stuff. Commercials. He's done 3 Super Bowl commercials. Insane amount of work. Yeah, he's quite the guy.
Does any of that surprise you, that his career's taken off to that extent?
I guess not. He was always, from the word go, he was, again, from the time he was 2. I mean, he was just a thoughtful, creative person. And I think being creative is the greatest achievement of a human, to be creative. Not to settle for the status quo, to always try to improve and correct and move on and learn.
And does his proud mum go along to the screenings?
If I'm invited. Hint, hint.
So you have to leave the introvert at home?
Yes.
When you think of your career so far, you've performed twice, is it, at the Carnegie Hall? You've got a screening coming up at the Lincoln Center. You've recorded records. The list goes on. Does any of that surprise you, that you have found yourself to be so multi-talented and continue to evolve, as you say, using your word. It's all about evolution.
Mm-hmm.
You're still striving every day for the evolution of your artistic self.
Yeah. It's what I do.
It's who you are.
It's what I do. You just keep on keeping on,
And you tragically have lost so many family members, your parents, your sister.
Mm-hmm.
How has that impacted you, do you think, collectively, or was it, these are stages of life again, but grief always impacts us.
Yes, it does. But they're always part of you. I mean, like everything that you come across, whether you're conscious of it or not, stays with you. And it's if you allow yourself through whatever means. And for example, with Shockwaves, it revealed so much about myself. While I was making it, I had memories. Oh my God, this happened to me this so long ago. And only now I'm remembering it because my memory was jogged. And so, for example, my mother, who was just an intensely creative and wonderful person, she's still with me. I mean, unfortunately, I can't see her because she's gone, but the memory of her and her influence and what she did and what she taught me, it's still with me. Unfortunately, it's a one-way street because I can only get from her. I can't reach back anymore. But everything is with you. Everything stays with you. It's all in your brain. It's all there, but you have to find it in whatever means you can do that. Whether that's meditation, whether however you can free your mind. And that's my sort of cause as a human, just to be creative.
Do you find much time for travel these days?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm going to LA for a month. I'm going to go to Germany for another, performance in September. So that's coming. So I'll have to brush up my German.
What's the performance?
It's in Stuttgart. It's a group called CAMP, C-A-M-P, Creative Art and Music Project. And what they do is every 2 years, they gather about 10 artists and musicians from around the world. And we just make new work and then perform it at the end of our session. So it's exciting. I've done it 2 times before. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful experience.
That sounds wonderful. That sounds like something to really look forward to.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. So life is good then?
It's pretty good. Yeah. I'm enjoying it. I love what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly. The talents are endless, and I look forward to, now that I've discovered you, thanks to our friend Chris Wareggi.
Oh, who is just a beautiful person. Yeah, I met her quite a while ago. She was an intern for me, if you can believe that.
Oh, my goodness, was she? I was wondering how you met.
Yeah, and I just loved her right off the bat. Like, oh, my goodness, what a person.
Well, thank you, Chris, for introducing me. And as I said, we'll be following your work with renewed interest now, and the evolution will continue, and I'm looking forward to following along.
Thank you.
Kasumi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. So much appreciated.
And don't forget, you can find the links to Kasumi's website and her social media by scrolling down the show notes. And if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you'll find the Art Podcast there. Just look for Art, and that's Art with 2 A's. The Art Podcast on Instagram and Art on Facebook. We would love to hear from you as always. You can reach us via email if you prefer. That's hollowellstudios@gmail.com. I'll be back next week when my guest will be the British stylist and costume designer Cynthia Lawrence-John. So I do hope you'll join me then.
The most wonderful time of the year. Although, let's be honest, around the holidays, things really add up. But here's the good news. Only at Verizon, you can get a single line for $50 per month when you switch and bring your phone. So while ice skating for two is definitely costing more, here at Verizon, you can save. Gifts for your third cousins? Steep. A single line with Verizon? Not so steep. A real tree? Pricey. A single line with Verizon? Less pricey. Flights to see Mima and Pops? Those are up. A $50 per month single line? That's down. Even a trip to the Atlanta holiday market will cost you more. But with Verizon, you can switch and bring your phone for just $50 per month for a single line on unlimited welcome, with autopay plus taxes and fees. All this to say, during the holiday season, when everything is costing more, you can get more for less right now at a local Verizon store. $15 monthly promo credits applied over 36 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G, 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply.